Tonight, new details on gunman Shamar Elkins, who shot and killed 7 of his children and their cousin.
Say he may have shot them all.
The shooter's brother-in-law, Troy Brown, shocked, telling NBC News 31-year-old Elkins recently sought mental health treatment through Veterans Affairs.
Investigators now say 31-year-old Shamar Elkins and his wife were right in the middle of separating and were actually due in court today.
The questions that have been in everybody's mouth is, why did he kill his own children? Who was the second woman? Was he on drugs or medication? What happened during that dinner with his daughter the night before? In order to address these questions, I went back in. I pulled every confirmed source, every family statement, every court record, and every verified social media post. I studied the doorbell camera footage that captured him running alone down a Shreveport street while the city was just waking up. No second person, no accomplice. Just Shamar Elkins moving fast in one direction, the direction of his own end. That footage told a story the initial press conferences never spelled out clearly. He wasn't panicking. He wasn't running from something that had just gone wrong. He looked like a man who had already completed the plan he came to execute. This is the Shamar Elkins case from Cedar Grove, Shreveport, Louisiana. On the morning of April 19, 2026, 8 children between the ages of 3 and 11 lost their lives. 7 were his own. 1 was a young relative. 2 adult women were shot and survived. Elkins, 31, died after a police pursuit and shootout. What turned a National Guard veteran and father into the central figure in one of the deadliest domestic incidents in Louisiana in years? The answers are in the records, the family accounts, and the investigation that is still unfolding. Today we walk through every verified layer, starting with the background that shaped him, the warning signs that were visible, and the final hours that led to that Sunday morning. If you want the full timeline, the open questions the ATF is still chasing, and every new detail that has surfaced since the first reports, make sure you're subscribed and notifications are on. This channel breaks down these cases with the facts first, no hype, no filler. Hit subscribe so you don't miss the rest of this one. Shamar Elkins was born on January 1, 1995, in Shreveport, Louisiana. He spent his entire life in the Cedar Grove neighborhood. That block was his world from childhood through adulthood. His biological mother, Mahalia Elkins, also reported as Mahalia Elkins, gave birth to him as a teenager while struggling with crack cocaine addiction. She could not raise him. A family friend named Betty Walker stepped in and became the person who actually raised Shamar. Walker provided the stability and daily care that shaped his early years. Elkins reconnected with his biological mother more than a decade ago, once he was already an adult, serving in the National Guard and building his own family. The 2 households, the one with Shaniqua Pugh and the one with Christina Snow, would later create additional layers of pressure. Betty Walker last saw him the weekend before April 19. Elkins brought his entire family to her house for dinner. She described him as seeming completely normal that day. Mahalia stayed in touch through text messages in the days leading up. On Tuesday before the shootings, she checked in on the children. He replied that everyone was doing okay. On Thursday, she sent another message, "I love y'all. Give my grandson and my granddaughters a kiss from Grandma." He never responded. These final contacts came after months of visible strain. Walker had been a constant in his life when his mother could not be. She watched him grow up, enlist in the military, return to Cedar Grove, and start families of his own. Public records and family interviews show a man who stayed rooted in the same community he knew as a boy. Cedar Grove was where he lived, worked, and raised children across 2 homes. It was also where the warning signs later appeared, at his UPS job, in court records, and in family conversations. The boy raised by Betty Walker became the 31-year-old veteran who carried out the attacks on that Sunday morning. Investigators and family members have pointed to this early foundation when trying to understand the path that led from a difficult start to the events of April 19, 2026. Shaniqua Pugh filed for divorce citing infidelity. That fact came straight from her brother, Troy Brown, Elkins's brother-in-law, who lived in the same West 79th Street home. Brown confirmed the infidelity detail to CNN during early interviews. the warning signs went back further. Before the couple married in April 2024, Sheniqua had considered leaving. When she raised it, Elkins told her directly, if she ever left, he would kill her, their children, and himself. She stayed. The marriage went forward anyway. By early 2026, the relationship was unraveling again. Sheniqua filed the divorce papers, and court records placed the final hearing on April 20, the morning after the shootings. The threat that had hung over the relationship for years now lined up exactly with the end of the marriage. Troy Brown later described hearing Elkins repeat versions of that same fear in the final days. He did not want to lose his wife. Betty Walker, who raised Elkins from childhood, also recalled similar statements during family conversations at her house. The other relationship involved Christina Snow. She was the mother of 3 of his children, Brylin Snow, 5, Kadarian Snow, also reported as Braylon or Kadarian in some records, age 6, and Saria Snow, 11, sometimes listed as Saria. Christina lived on Harrison Street in the same Cedar Grove neighborhood. The attack started at her home first. Investigators tied the sequence to the domestic conflict. The infidelity cited in the filing, the dual households, and the scheduled court date created a clear pressure point. Family members and records show the threat had surfaced more than once, yet no formal intervention followed the earlier warnings. The system had the divorce filing. The families knew the history. The April 20 hearing date was known weeks in advance. None of it stopped what happened before sunrise on April 19. Shamar Elkins, enlisted in the Louisiana Army National Guard in August 2013, right after he turned 18. He served for 7 years until his discharge in August 2020. His military occupational specialties included Signal Support System Specialist and Fire Support Specialist. Both roles required training in weapon systems, coordinating firepower, and operating under pressure in high-stakes training environments. According to Army records, he was never deployed overseas. Elkins left the Guard at the rank of private, the lowest enlisted rank. Public records show no documented transition assistance program details tied to his exit. He returned to civilian life in Shreveport's Cedar Grove neighborhood. This period later became relevant to investigators for 2 reasons. First, his training gave him familiarity with firearms and tactical movement. Second, after his 2019 conviction for illegal use of a weapon, Louisiana law prohibited him from possessing firearms until at least 2029. The ATF is actively investigating how he obtained the 2 guns used on April 19, a small caliber handgun and a rifle-style pistol. Family members and coworkers described Elkins as someone who carried himself with the discipline he learned in the Guard. Yet after discharge, he stepped back into the same streets he grew up on, now balancing work, 2 households, and mounting personal pressures. The 7 years in uniform added skills but no overseas combat experience. When the uniform came off, the transition happened without the kind of structured support that many veterans receive. That gap sat in the background as his civilian life unfolded. After leaving the Louisiana Army National Guard in August 2020, Shamar Elkins returned to Shreveport and took a job at UPS. A coworker named Willie Vasher later described him to the New York Times as someone who seemed like a devoted family man on the surface. But Vasher noticed something else during their shifts together. Elkins had a visible bald spot on his head. It wasn't from genetics. He pulled out his own hair strand by strand throughout the workday, a nervous tic driven by stress. His mother had noticed the same habit. Colleagues saw it, but no one pressed further about what was weighing on him. His criminal record added another layer. In 2016, he was convicted of DWI. Then, in March 2019, officers arrested him near Caddo Magnet High School. According to police reports, Elkins pulled a 9 handgun from his waistband and fired 5 shots at a vehicle that he said had pointed a gun at him first. Shell casings were recovered, and children were playing outside less than 300 feet away. He pleaded guilty to illegal use of a weapon. The charge of carrying a firearm on school property was dismissed. The court sentenced him to 18 months of probation. Under Louisiana law, that conviction barred him from legally possessing firearms until at least 2029. Yet on April 19, 2026, He used two weapons, a small caliber handgun and a rifle-style pistol. The ATF is now investigating exactly how he obtained them. These details sat in public records for years. The 2019 incident happened in the same Cedar Grove area where he grew up and later lived with his family. After the military, the UPS job, the visible signs of stress, and the prior weapons conviction formed part of the picture investigators examined once the full scope of that Sunday morning became clear. The probation ended years earlier, but the firearms prohibition remained in effect. How the guns reached him is one of the questions still open in the federal probe. Christina Snow was Elkins's girlfriend and the mother of 3 of his children. Brillan Snow, age 5, Kadarian Snow, age 6, also reported as Braylon or Kadarian Snow in some accounts, and Saria Snow, age 11, sometimes listed as Saria Snow. She lived on Harrison Street in the Cedar Grove neighborhood, a short distance from the West 79th Street home. Records and family statements show Elkins maintained relationships in both households. Christina had previously sought child support and custody arrangements for Saria in earlier years. By 2026, the two homes operated as parallel family units under growing strain. The sequence on April 19 began at Christina's Harrison Street address around 5:00 a.m. She was shot in the head and seriously injured. Christina survived, underwent surgery, and later provided investigators with a detailed account of what happened at her door before sunrise. Elkins took her 3 children from the residence before driving to the second location. Police linked the two scenes quickly. The Harrison Street shooting and the West 79th Street incident involved the same suspect and the same vehicle. Christina's survival and her statement became key pieces in reconstructing the timeline. This second household added another layer to the domestic pressures already documented in the divorce filing from Shenequa Pugh. 2 women, 2 sets of children, and 1 man moving between them in the final weeks. In February 2026, Shamar Elkins tried to take his own life. Betty Walker, the woman who raised him from childhood, confirmed the attempt directly to the New York Times. She declined to give specifics but said afterward, Elkins received medicine and participated in counseling at a nearby Veterans Affairs hospital. According to family accounts, he stayed for about a week and a half for a mental health evaluation before being released. When he came home, relatives said he appeared happy. But 10 days later, he posted publicly on Facebook asking God to guard his mind and emotions when negativity arose. The post remained visible on his page. It was one of several signals that the crisis had not fully passed. He returned to the same environment, a dissolving marriage, financial pressures from 2 households, and the upcoming divorce hearing. Betty Walker had been his main source of stability growing up. She last saw him the weekend before the shootings, when he brought his entire family to her house for dinner. At that point, she said he seemed completely normal. The VA treatment involved standard mental health protocols, including medication and counseling. Exact details of his discharge plan and any follow-up care have not been publicly released. Investigators are still reviewing what role, if any, medication or the short-term stay played in the weeks that followed. This February incident sat alongside other documented warning signs: the earlier firearms conviction, the visible stress tick at UPS, and the repeated threats tied to the marriage. Elkins had access to the system through his veteran status, yet he was sent back into the same pressures that had built for years. The gap between the attempt, the treatment, and the events of April 19 became a central focus for those examining how the situation escalated. On Easter Sunday, April 5, 2026, Shamar Elkins called his biological mother Mahalia Elkins and stepfather Marcus Jackson. He was crying. He told them Shenequa had filed for divorce and that he was drowning in dark thoughts. His stepfather tried to encourage him, saying he could beat it. Elkins replied with a line that stayed with the family: "Some people do not come back from their demons." The call ended without further action. No one contacted a crisis line or police at that time. Troy Brown, Elkins's brother-in-law who lived in the West 79th Street home, noticed changes in the final days. He heard Elkins repeating the same worry over and over. "Bro, I do not want to lose my wife. Brown later described the tone as unlike anything he had heard from him before. On Saturday afternoon, April 18, neighbor Freddie Montgomery saw Elkins sitting calmly on his front porch, watching the children play in the yard. The two men waved at each other. That same evening, Elkins went on a one-on-one dinner date with his eldest daughter. He posted a photo of her eating a burger, adding laughing emojis. Earlier on Easter, he had shared another post with 7 of his children, captioning it a blessed day at church. At 9:00 p.m. Saturday, Troy Brown left for work. Elkins appeared calm. Betty Walker, who had raised him, had seen the whole family just the weekend before at her house for dinner. She said he seemed completely normal then. Mahalia had texted him days earlier, sending love and asking for kisses to pass to the grandchildren. He never replied to the last message. These final days contained clear signals. The Easter phone call, the repeated statements to Troy Brown, the public Facebook activity, and the visible calm on Saturday. The divorce court date stood the next morning. None of the warnings changed the outcome before sunrise on April 19. Around 5:00 a.m. on Sunday, April 19, 2026, Shamar Elkins arrived at Christina Snow's home on Harrison Street. He shot her in the head. Christina survived, underwent surgery, and gave police a clear account of the encounter. Elkins took her 3 children, Saria Snow, 11, Kadarian Snow, 6, and Braylon Snow, 5, and left the scene. He then drove to the house in the 300 block of West 79th Street, where Sheniqua Pugh and several other children were sleeping. That is where the majority of the shooting took place. Shreveport police received the first 911 call at 5:55 a.m. The caller, who had fled to the roof, reported a disturbance and said a male had been shot inside. 3 minutes later, at 5:58 a.m., the same caller identified the suspect as a relative. At 5:59 a.m., dispatch learned that about 9 people lived at the address and that Elkins had shot everyone inside. At 6:00 a.m., the caller reported she and her children had jumped from the roof and were now in the backyard. Officers arrived at 6:01 a.m. and made contact at 6:03 a.m. They requested fire department staging nearby. At 6:07 a.m., a second call came in from the Harrison Street address. The victim identified her boyfriend as Shamar Elkins and said he had shot her and taken her 3 children. By 6:10 a.m., dispatch linked the 2 shootings. Some people inside the West 79th Street home tried to escape. Bullet holes were later found in the back door. Kosha Pugh, Sheniqua's sister who lived there, and her 12-year-old daughter jumped from the roof. Both sustained broken bones but survived. Kosha managed to call a family member during the incident. At 6:15 a.m., officers learned Elkins had carjacked a red Kia Sportage near West 79th and Linwood. Traffic units spotted the vehicle at 6:17 a.m., heading south on Interstate 49. It crossed the Red River Bridge into Bossier City. At 6:20 a.m., police received word the missing children might be in the car. Officers made contact at 6:29 a.m. in the 400 block of Brompton Lane through an exchange of gunfire. At 6:30 a.m., they confirmed the location. By 6:40 a.m., the vehicle was empty, no children inside. At 6:43 a.m., officers cleared the West 79th Street house and found multiple deceased victims. Elkins was pronounced dead at the scene at 7:03 a.m. At 7:14 a.m., Shreveport police contacted the Louisiana State Police to investigate the officer-involved shooting. The 8 children killed were Jayla Elkins, 3, Shayla Elkins, 5, Kayla Pug, 6, Layla Pug, 7, Markaden Pug, 10, Saria Snow, 11, Kadarian Snow, 6, and Braylon Snow, 5. 7 were Elkins's children. The 8th was a young relative. 2 women, Christina Snow and Sheniqua Pugh, were shot and survived after surgery. This timeline comes directly from Shreveport Police dispatch records and the chief's public briefing. It shows how quickly the calls came in and how the 2 scenes connected within minutes. After leaving the West 79th Street house, Shamar Elkins carjacked a red Kia Sportage near the intersection of West 79th and Linwood around 6:15 a.m. Shreveport police traffic units spotted the vehicle at 6:17 a.m. traveling southbound on Interstate 49. It crossed the Red River Bridge into Bossier City. Dispatchers had already linked the Harrison Street and West 79th Street shootings by 6:10 a.m. At 6:20 a.m., officers received information that the 3 children taken from Christina Snow's home might be inside the fleeing car. The pursuit continued as units followed the Kia into the Swan Lake area. At approximately 6:29 a.m., officers made contact with Elkins in the 400 block of Brompton Lane. An exchange of gunfire occurred. By 6:30 a.m., police confirmed the location. At 6:40 a.m., they cleared the suspect vehicle and found it empty, no children inside. Officers then returned to the West 79th Street residence and at 6:43 a.m. confirmed multiple deceased victims inside. Shamar Elkins was pronounced dead at the Brompton Lane scene at 7:03 a.m. At 7:14 a.m., Shreveport police contacted the Louisiana State Police Bureau of Investigations to handle the officer-involved shooting. Louisiana State Police detectives responded to the Bossier City address to process the scene. The carjacking and short pursuit spanned 2 parishes, Caddo and Bossier. Police later confirmed the 3 children from Harrison Street were not in the vehicle. The confrontation ended the active threat less than 2 hours after the first 911 call came in. This sequence, drawn from official dispatch records and the Shreveport Police Chief's briefing, shows how rapidly events moved from the initial calls to the final shootout. Federal agents from the ATF are actively investigating how Shamar Elkins obtained the 2 firearms used on April 19. Louisiana law barred him from possessing guns until at least 2029, following his 2019 conviction for illegal use of a weapon. The exact source of the small-caliber handgun and rifle-style pistol remains unanswered as of the latest updates. Toxicology results from Elkins and any details about medication from his February VA stay have not been released publicly. The VA inpatient treatment focused on mental health, but discharge records and follow-up plans stay under review by investigators. Rumors circulated online about additional details surrounding the infidelity cited in Sheniqua Pugh's divorce filing. No family member or official investigator has confirmed those specifics. Police have described the case as domestic-related, centered on the pending divorce and the dual households. The Louisiana governor's Love One Louisiana Foundation covered all funeral costs for the 8 children. The Community Foundation of North Louisiana established dedicated survivor funds to assist the injured women and affected families. Hundreds gathered for a vigil in Cedar Grove. Troy Brown, who lost his son Markaden Pug in the West 79th Street home, spoke through tears about the daily role he played in raising the children. "I'm never going to get to throw the football with him again," he said. Kosha Pugh and her 12-year-old daughter, who jumped from the roof with broken bones, continue recovering. The investigation continues under Louisiana State Police for the officer-involved shooting and Shreveport detectives for the overall case. Multiple doors existed in the system: the prior conviction, the suicide attempt, the divorce filing, and the public warnings, yet none stopped the events of that morning. Jayla Elkins was 3, Shayla Elkins was 5, Kayla Pug was 6, Layla Pug was 7, Markaden Pug was 10, Saria Snow was 11, Kadarian Snow was 6, Braylon Snow was 5. These 8 children, 7 of Shamar Elkins's own and 1 young relative, were killed in their homes on the morning of April 19, 2026. 2 women, Sheniqua Pugh and Christina Snow, were shot and survived. Kosha Pugh and her 12-year-old daughter escaped injury by jumping from the roof. The investigation continues. The ATF is still working to trace how Elkins obtained the firearms despite the legal prohibition that ran through 2029. Toxicology results and full details from his VA treatment have not been made public. The divorce hearing scheduled for April 20 never took place. The Louisiana governor's Love One Louisiana Foundation paid for all the funerals. The Community Foundation of North Louisiana set up survivor funds for the families and the injured. This case exposed multiple points where intervention could have happened. The 2019 weapons conviction, the February suicide attempt, the public Facebook post, the Easter phone call, and the divorce filing with its documented history of threats. None of those doors opened in time. The facts are now on record. The questions that remain drive the ongoing probes by Shreveport Police, Louisiana State Police, and federal agents. If you want more in-depth breakdowns of cases like this, full timelines, verified records, open investigations, and clear facts without the noise, subscribe and turn on notifications. Drop a comment with the next true crime case you want covered. We'll dig into it next. These 8 children should still be here. Their names are part of the record now, and so is everything that led to that morning.